Welcome in, welcome in. Haven't done this in a long time. I forgot what it was like, man. Just wanted to do a late night impromptu Q&A. No, no specific agenda involved or anything like that. I just kind of get these whims about me and haven't really done a whole lot of content creation in a while, and so I just kind of hey, let's have a good conversation tonight. You got questions? I may or may not have answers. We'll do what we can, but I just want to connect with y'all. Haven't talked to y'all in a while, and I'm always up for it. So, Louis, what's up, man? It's good to see you. Haven't seen y'all in a while. Frank's already got a question up. We'll get to that in a minute, bud. Optimistic is here. Good to see you. So, we'll see where the night brings us. But I do have as you can see, my liquid with me here. But before we get to all that, I want to make sure that you like, subscribe, everything for the channel. Helps everything out. Want to make this bigger and better for everybody. So, like, comment, subscribe, do everything. Hit that like button, subscribe. I will truly appreciate it. So, that way we can make it better for everybody. All right, so got big game tomorrow night, right? We got Detroit Lions coming to town, Sunday Night Football. The stadium's going to be open. That's exciting. I was kind of iffy if I was going to be able to make the game. I'm pretty 99% that I will be able to make the game now. And so I will be up in the press box at the top level where you just can't see the field without binoculars. Sitting next to my buds, Cody and Landry. So it'll be a fun time. I'm excited to see how this game plays out. I'm excited to see who ends up playing. I'm excited to watch Detroit. I mean, this is just a fantastic football team. I'm just excited to watch that part of the football. And so, it's just a lot to this. I think the biggest question is going to be Nico Collins and if he can play. I didn't even really create any talking points tonight. I'm kind of disappointed in myself. I even had the date on the opening clip wrong. I didn't even change it. I just did this on like a whim of like 3 or 4 minutes. Like, let's go live. Who cares? So, I think Nico Collins is going to be the biggest question mark. And I honestly don't have any insight if he's going to play or not. I've been told by a few folks that he's ready to go. He is ready to go. And he has been ready to go. He was upset that the team did not activate him, or not activate, designate him for the return to get back into practice back on Wednesday, Thursday, and waited till Friday. And so this team, D'Amico Ryan specifically, is big into you got to practice all week if you're going to play. It's only been 2 instances all season long that a player has not practiced on Wednesday, Thursday, but practiced on Friday and played on Sunday. And I think Dalton Schultz was 1 week, and the name escapes me for the other, but it's a rare occurrence. And then you go back to the coffee with coach that D'Amico does with John Harris and Mark Vandermeer. I think it's on Mondays, that D'Amico really preached, hey, you got to show me that you can practice all week. You got to show me that you can handle the load. You got to show the team that you can do these things. And maybe Nico is the exception to the rule in this specific case, given the competition that's coming to town. But I just don't know if D'Amico is going to let Nico play. Nico. Boy, that's fun. I don't know if D'Amico Ryan's going to let Nico Collins play. I hope he lets him play. But I get the fact that you go back to, like I was talking about with Coffee with Coach on Monday, where D'Amico is saying, you got to prove this stuff. And on top of that, he stressed that he does not want to see re-injury. And I think the Christian Harris situation has just got him so tied up with re-injury. When Christian Harris came back during training camp and re-injured his calf, and I don't know when he's coming back. John Alexander with the Houston Chronicles says that he may come back after the bye week. Who knows? But the fact that it's been this long, right? And so I think D'Amico is very much I want to make sure that he is 100% of the time and not come back early, potentially re-injure, and then miss another 4 or 5 games. I would rather sacrifice this game to ensure that I get 8 more games out of Nico Collins for the rest of the season, right? And so, or 8 games at this point. 9, 10. Yeah, 8 games. Plus playoffs, blah, blah, blah. But anyhow, you get the point. The point is do you chance him for this game at the expense potentially of other games? And that's a critical decision. And it's tough to tell the player that we're gonna sit you for 1 more week to make sure that you're ready to go the rest of the season. And that's a tough thing. So we'll wait. I mean, there's a bevy of roster moves that this team could make tomorrow. I sent a tweet out today that, they put Kenyon Green on injured reserve. So they have 1 spot open on the 53-man roster. And you have 3 players that have been designated for return, right? You've got Jerry Hughes, defensive end. You've got Nico Collins, wide receiver, and Jeff Okudah, cornerback. Now, I could see Jeff Okudah being activated and potentially Kadar Holman, who was signed off of the Ravens practice squad. I think it was the Ravens, about 5 weeks ago. So maybe you release him, get him back on practice squad. And that's who Okudah's spot takes. Cornerback for cornerback makes sense. And then Nico Collins takes the open spot, maybe. And then Jerry Hughes, maybe you just don't activate him for this week, right? The team's pretty heavy. Even without Will Anderson, they're pretty heavy on the defensive line, even after trading Khalil Davis, which don't get me started. Anyhow, I digress. So tomorrow by 3 p.m. is the deadline. Saturday by 3 p.m. is the deadline. We're going to see up to three roster shuffling tactics. So we'll wait to see what happens. So I know we got a lot of Q&A going on. I definitely want to get to those, and that was the whole point of tonight's impromptu live show, was just a Q&A session. So let's get into it. Frank says, are the Packers the toughest defense the Lions have faced thus far? I don't know. Let's go to the screen share. Let me hide something real quick because I don't want y'all seeing my my toolbar. All right, so let me get a. We don't want to see that. Let's see here. Who have? All right, who have the Detroit Lions played? Having a little brain fart on where we should go. All right. Let's look at their 24 season. So they played the Rams, the Buccaneers, the Cardinals, Seahawks, Cowboys when they were presumably kind of healthy, the Vikings, Tennessee, and Green Bay. So I would say the Vikings is probably the most difficult defense that they have played, that the Lions have played. And they beat them 31-29. And it seems like that teams have kind of gotten a hang of Brian Flores and the Vikings. And, you know, I would say the Packers is probably the second best defense that the Lions have faced, but I would say that the Vikings is probably the best that they have faced. And that's two really good defenses, and that's two really good defenses that Houston and Houston fans have seen. So I think I haven't really looked at what the Lions do, and that might be fun to do. So I know we've got a few other questions here. We'll get to them. I promise. But I want to go see, and this will be a fun exercise. So this is kind of what I do whenever I'm going to look at what teams do defensively, right? Sam's, good to see you, bud. Thanks for hopping in. So kind of what I wanted to do here is I want to see what the Lions do. And so usually the first place I go to is fantasy points data. I want to see what kind of defense they run. So we're going to look at their coverage matrix. I want to see what the Lions run. So Lions. All right, so we see that they, let me widen this up a little bit. There we go. Oh, this one's got the red star background. I thought I fixed that. All right, so we see that they run 52% zone, 43% man, too high only 44% of the time. Woo. So 56% single high is good. That's good for Houston. 37% in cover 1, cover 3 with a little bit of cover 4 quarters, presumably in long down situations. So they're running 54%, like we talked about, single high 56. So they're in cover 3, cover 1, single high majority of the time. So that's good. I like that. Houston presumptively does well against cover 1 and cover 3. It's basically against a single high. It puts a lot of stress with especially if Nico Collins is playing. They run a lot of that bang 8 route, cross over the middle of the field, the deep, 8 to 10, 12 yard deep end breaker, or it's a bang 8 yards and posted upfield. A lot of 10-yard digs. We see a lot of that where they'll run the tight ends out into the flat. Let me get back over to this angle. I just got to turn this off. Back to live mode. All right, so a lot of times you'll see Houston will run tight end, they'll run the wide receivers out to the flats with the tight ends with the dig. A lot of kind of dagger routes with a go from the slot with a dagger across at 10, 12, 8 yards. So a lot of those type, especially the double post, which I've covered. If you look at my YouTube channel, I've covered those in the past where you run a double post. Those put a lot of stress on single high safeties. So I think that's something that's kind of going to pique my interest. Now, I will say on the flip side, single high safety is not as good for rushing the ball because you're presumably going to have a second safety closer to the box, not specifically in the box, but closer to the box. And so Houston, as we know, has faced two high safeties a large portion of this year, which yields a second safety out of the box, which has kind of helped Houston with their rushing attack and Joe Mixon and the success that he has seen. So, that's kind of just one piece I would look at on how they're covering things. There's certain things that I can look at that I don't want to show y'all, but we'll go from there. So let's see here. Louis says, just got home from my cousin's high school football game for the first time. 7-man front, and they failed to get to. I'll tell you what, Louis, you want to watch something fun. So my daughter attends Christian academy, and they play 6-on-6 football in a shorter field. It's 80 yards. And it is the wildest thing to see 2 linemen, 2 receivers, quarterback, and a running back. And a lot of times, they'll line up in pistol to where the running back will take the snap, toss it back to the quarterback, 2 routes dispersed, and then that running back will either turn into a fullback or turn into another receiver route. It is insane. I'm fascinated by watching 6-on-6. It is so fun to me, and because just smack the mic, because there's nobody on the field. There's a lot of game-breaking plays, a lot of big game plays, 60, 70-yard plays where you only have to force like 2 missed tackles, and then you're off to the races. So it is fun. I did take our daughter to Pearland because my nephew attends Pearland, and we went to the Pearland high school game because I wanted her to get kind of the full experience. Like at her academy, it's there's like eight kids in the band. Their cheer squad. My daughter's on the cheer squad, so there's 12 kids on the junior high, or not even 12. I think it's like 9 or 10 it's just so small, right? Because there's only like 50 kids in her class, and so I wanted her to have like see the full high school experience, and so we took her to Pearland. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law, they have season tickets, and so they let us use their tickets, and it was really fun. But man, that was really cool watching some good old-fashioned high school football. They played against Pasadena Memorial and just demolished them, unfortunately. So, anyhow, so it is fun to watch high school football. The kids work their tails off, and I truly enjoy it. But if you ever get a chance to go to an academy game and watch 6-on-6, it's a trip, man. Mr. Optimistic, my favorite. So, for clarity, a question we spoke about earlier, I wanted to make sure I get that right. We have one active spot on the roster, none of the three does. Yes, that is correct. So, and I love the avatar, man. That's beautiful. Yes, so they have one open roster spot today at this moment and 3 players designated for a return. Jerry Hughes and Jeff Okuda opened their practice window on Monday. Nico Collins today. So they got 21 days from their opening of their practice window of when they can return. So their team is not forced into returning any of those 3 players. Now they do have one open spot, so you gotta assume that one of those guys is coming up. Like we talked about, probably 2. I don't want to speculate on what Jerry Hughes and what roster spot he could take, but it does concern me with a specific second-year defensive end player that has an ankle injury. We'll just leave it at that. So, yes. Frank says, really excited to see how the Texans defense stack up versus offensive alone. Man, this is going to be a challenge. This is probably going to be the biggest challenge that this defense has faced all season. Green Bay was a great challenge, don't get me wrong, but this is a complete offense. You've got Jamar Gibbs and David Montgomery, both very good running backs. Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the best wide receivers in the game, excellent route runner. Jameson Williamson, who got his suspension nullified. So, I mean, you've got just weapons up and down. And Ben Johnson, probably I think it's safe to say, the best offensive coordinator in the league, and is happy to remain as an offensive coordinator, which is rare to see. And I think that's fantastic. And not to get off to a whatever you call it, get off on a tangent. That's the word I was looking for. Get off into a tangent. It's great to see Ben Johnson recognize, and I'm not saying he won't be a good head coach, okay? That's not what I'm saying here. But the fact that he recognizes that he's in a good situation and he knows that he's in a good situation, he's in a situation that he could potentially win a ring in, right? He knows that, hey, this is a good situation. I've got a good personnel. I've got a good head coach. He supports me. And I could potentially get a ring out of this, right? So, props to that recognition. Maybe he will be a head coach somewhere, and maybe he will excel. But there's often the other flip side of it. You look at Steve Spagnuolo with Kansas City, who just has identified that, hey, I shouldn't be a head coach, but I'm a damn good defensive coordinator, and that's what I excel at. And so I'm really excited with you, Frank, to see how this defense stacks up. No, Will Anderson does put a little blow into it, that we're likely going to see a mix of Derek Barnett and Domenico Autry on that left defensive end side. Danico will move inside some as well on passing downs. But Yeah, this is going to be a challenge. Stingley and Lassiter. Looks like Jimmy Ward's going to play. So we're going to hopefully see more of the post-snap rotations that D'Amico will run when Jimmy Ward is on the field. When Jimmy Ward is off the field, it's a lot of single high, Caleb Bullock in center field. But now with Jimmy Ward, you'll see Bullock and Ward rotating back and forth. Is it too early to tell how much team's cap space is going to be for next year? It is and it isn't. But we can take a look. Why not? So when you go over to cap.com, which is a place that I work for, I do a lot of data entry for multiple, a lot of contracts. I don't write too much on overthecap.com just because I have my newsletter, plug, capandtrade.football. So just keep in mind that when you go look here, Texans are down here towards the bottom at 19. But that's with only 40 contracts. So we put in an effective cap space number. So that means that the team would need, that's the number, that 7.091 million is the number the team would be at once they get to 51 contracts. So theoretically, the team's going to sign some futures contracts based on the from the practice squad, get up to 51. So theoretically, you'd be at around 7 million. Let's go look at 2025. And the numbers are not sorted here. Unfortunately, Nick hasn't figured that part out. But now the number here, Jason hasn't fixed this. The number here is, like we said, it's that effective number, that 19,095. It's not the effective number. It's just the hard number. So 19 and change drops down to 7 once you sign some players, sign some futures, and then you really start digging in. What moves can be made, right? And so if you're ever interested, you can go to this calculator right here. It's pretty fun. You can go to the calculator here and you can start making some moves. So we know jump to 2025. Maybe you want to move Titus Howard, but he only provides 1.97 in cap savings. So you can hit submit. Maybe you want to go down to Kenyon Green's not going to save any money either. Let's find somebody who's got a little savings. There's really nobody with savings. Everybody else is rookie contracts. There's really not much they can do. You can also do restructures. So if you wanted to restructure Larry Tunsil at the max, there, boom, look, 31 million. So it's not too early, but I would just make sure that when you're looking at the cap space on here, look at this effective cap number. The 19 million looks pretty, looks cool, and then you sign 11 players off the practice squad to futures after the season's over, and you're at 7 million. Doesn't take much. Whew, hit the wrong button. Sorry about that. Is Shaq Mason's contract, Shan says, is Shaq Mason's contract structured in a way that can be released this off season? He's not the problem on the line, but he is a problem. Well, let's go back over to the share screen. Let's take a look. Shaquille Mason. All right. So He only has 1.05 million in guaranteed salary for 2025, so definitely releasable. He's only going to have 12.4 in dead money, so it's not a big cap savings number. 2.176 in cap savings. There is a big cash savings of 10 million plus 500,000 plus 50, so 10.55 million in cash savings. But is it movable? Yes. Does it provide a lot of savings? Not specifically, just from the fact that you've got 4.18, 4.108, and 16.08 times 2. So you've got, what was that, 10, 12, so 12.42 in dead money from the fact that the team had to restructure Mason in the 2024 season. They converted salary into bonus to push money forward. So that is partly why you're seeing such a big number here. So is it movable? Yes. Is it movable? Yes. Does it provide a lot of savings? Not specifically. And so that's at the point where you've got to decide, is it cost prohibitive to release him, save 2.1 million in cap dollars, and sign another guard, presumably for more money, that's going to end up being a negative number between the two moves. I'm not trying to say that you want to keep Mason, but these are the things that the team is going to consider from a cash and cap perspective. If I am getting X amount of dollar return on Mason, you know what? Let's take a look at this. Let me jump back over this. So we have this valuation tool on over the cap. And so we have Mason valued at 6.6 million APY. That's on this year alone. Okay, that doesn't factor in previous years or anything like that. So essentially what that is doing is taking his performance and converting it into an APY value, right? And so if we go look at guard contracts, 6.6 is going to put him down in this area. So he is at plus 30. So he's probably like top 35 guards in performance when you look at an APY contract value. Now, if you're going to release him in 2025, let's just do a hypothetical, right? If you're going to release him, you've got to replace that value. Okay? So now you've got to go find a guard, whether it's through the draft or through free agency. You've got to pay that player and hope that they're going to replicate or exceed this value. So these are the things you got to consider, right? It's easy to just say, yeah, just release the player, sign somebody else, and let's get better. But do you truly get better, right? Do you look, is the player that you're signing going to provide more value than what Mason does now? I don't know. And so these are the things you just got to consider, right? I wish we had traded for a guard, but I don't know we really have the cap space. We had the cap space. The team, I hate saying we, I'm sorry. The team had the cap space. And we saw it all through the trade period where teams were forced to pay salary to trade players. Now, what I think is the issue here is there was no teams looking to move guards. Interior offensive line has an extreme shortage of talent across the league. And teams are not even willing to move players, much less move players that are not top tier, because you're certainly not going to move those guys. But you're not going to move players that are even mid-level, like Shaq Mason level. Teams are not even willing to trade those type of players. And it's not as simple as calling up a team and say, hey, I want to trade for so-and-so. No, it takes two to tango, right? It takes, you're willing to offer what they're willing to take, and they're willing to trade such a player. But they may not have sufficient backup on their roster to backfill for that player if they trade away. So, yeah, I hear you. I would love to have potentially traded for a player, but there was nobody available, to be honest. I mean, from my understanding, the team was looking at some back-end depth type guards, right? That were not players that you were going to come in and be immediate starters. So I get the premise, and I'm interested in it, and I get the premise, but I just don't know that there were guards like game-changing, make a difference, bring them in, guards that were going to make a difference. I know everybody's biggest names was Wyatt Teller and Joel Bitonio. I apologize. Bitonio up in Cleveland. But it takes two to tango, right? It takes Cleveland willing to relinquish those players, and it takes Houston willing to give draft assets to get those players. And just wasn't there. Sam, good to see you, bud. Haven't talked to you in a while, man. Love chatting with you. Are you surprised Caserio hasn't added a running back to the mix given the trade of Akers and Pierce's second stint of missing multiple games? Well, yeah, they added J.J. Taylor. I don't know that he's what you would hope that a team would add, but J.J. Taylor is going to be your RB2, 3, however you want to call it. Dare is the team's third down running back. So that's the running back room. And I don't know that there was really any of them. I think the team was happy to just kind of stay put with that one. Maybe, but the fact that they trade away Akers and put him to a team that was looking for him, and I truly think, I haven't got pure confirmation on this, but I truly do think the team went to Akers and said, hey, look, man, Pierce is healthy. He's going to be RB2. Ogunbowale is RB3. When Pierce is healthy, you're probably going to be inactive. Kind of like that Mark Ingram situation, right? And so they probably went to him and say, look, this is the case. You're going to be inactive most weeks unless somebody's unhealthy. Minnesota called. Are you interested in going to Minnesota? I don't have confirmation on this, but I'm confident that that's what the team said. Say, hey, do you want to go to Minnesota and play there? They have an opportunity. You'll be more likely to play there than you will here. We'll do right by you. We'll trade you and send you up there. Akers obviously says, yes, no problem. Send me up there. Bam, boom, boom, done. Right? So I'm not surprised that they didn't add to it, especially after signing J.J. Taylor. He's literally diagnosing in real time. I'll do what I can. Sam says, is the chart that you retweeted by 33rd tweet, including drives where the offense scores in the last 2 minutes. So that was one of those times where I retweeted something without really, really looking at it. And then I realized that probably wasn't a good retweet. And for the exact reason that you're talking about, Sam. The exact reason. So I don't know the answer to your question. A lot of the folks that I knew at 33rd team have left. So I can't message the folks that I used to know there. Tej left, Arjun left, Eric Berger left to go work for Carolina. So I just don't know people there anymore that I knew, 6 months ago. I would have messaged them and asked them about this, but I think your premise is spot on that yes, there is the chance that the team is making a stop, getting the opponent's offense off the field, 3 and out, under 2 minutes. On the flip side, I think this is probably also capturing times where teams are just, boom, big play, 1 play, 2 plays, getting downfield, scoring a touchdown under 2 minutes. So, yes, Sam, I think that probably does capture both of any plays that are 3 and out under 2 minutes and plays that are opposite. So, and I just noticed at the bottom right, it says October 25th. That's a little disappointing. What does it say? November 8th? November. See, this is what happens when you do impromptu stuff. You don't get your stuff updated, and you look like an idiot. Can we run King in the nickel this week? Don't want to see Petrie. You don't want King running nickel either. This is one of the times where this team is going to get beat up by match. And I wonder if we're going to see Miles Bryant active. He's been inactive most games, but I don't know how you put him on the field at the same time as Petrie. Petrie is like that pseudo $ star position, but you don't want him covering good wide receivers in the slot. Maybe Miles Bryant can do it. I don't know. But if Miles Bryant is on the field, let's just talk this through. Let's say you've got your back end, right, is Stingley, Lassiter, Ward, Bullock. Okay, that's your back 4. You've got your front 4 of Barnett, Settle, Fatukasi, and Hunter. That's your front 4. Back 4, 8. So you've got 3 spots left. You've got Aziz Al-Shahir and Henry Toto. Now, that leaves you 1 spot left on this field. Are you running out Jalen Petrie, or are you running out Miles Bryant? I don't know the answer to that question. Miles Bryant's probably better in coverage. Jalen Petrie's probably better in run defense. Jalen Petrie's very good at blitzing the quarterback. I have a feeling this team is going to lean on Petrie again. Right or wrong, that's not for me to decide. But that's a really good just thought experiment. Like, what happens with this team? Do you take Petrie off the field, who has played 100% of the snaps, to run out a dedicated slot cornerback? But what happens is a run play? Miles Bryant is horrible in run defense. I don't know. Man, that's a good one, Sam. What is a realistic time to move on from either of these tackles financially without taking a big hit? Yeah, we kind of looked at it. Laramie you would have to trade, right? Because he's got $10 million guaranteed salary. So his dead money is $25 million. Oof. And Titus, because they restructured him this year, his dead money is at 21. So you have barely any savings between Shaq Mason, Laramie Tunsil, and Titus Howard. You would have to find a trade partner. That's what would have to happen. You would have to find a trade partner with Titus or Laramie to get them off this roster. And then you would presumably move up Blake Fisher to one of those spots. It's not good. It's not good. For a team that has offensive line personnel issues. You can say coaching, you can say whatever. But it's personnel issues on top of coaching. Running it back with Mason, Howard, and Tunsil with Blake Fisher just standing on the sideline just makes no sense to me. So, to me, it's got to be a Tyus Howard move. He's got the lowest guaranteed salary of 1.8. He's just got a huge amount of prorated sign-in bonus money because of the restructure that Caserio completed the past season. So, like we talked about earlier, it's only 1.975 in cap savings. Gross. That's even before you factor in a replacement player. So, I think Mason is a player that is worth keeping. I think he can be sufficient. I think he can be acceptable. I think he can give you what you need at a right guard. But I do think if there's any offensive lineman that's going to get moved off of this roster, whether it's cut, trade, whatever, I think Tytus Howard's your guy. And I hate to say that. I hate saying that about players, but I think that from a cap perspective and cash perspective, because 15.5 minus 1.8, 13.7 million in cash savings, 13.2 cash savings is what you're going to get out of Tyus Howard. And that's money that this organization can filter back into the roster while still staying under the cap. So that would be my take on the situation. 2 years for Titus, Sarah. Sarah's awesome. 2 years for Titus, 2 years for Shaq, 2026. She's not wrong. She's not wrong. I would disagree with you, Sarah, on Titus on 2026. I think there's a way you can get out of that one in 2025. Shaq, I think, makes more sense to keep around for 2025, and Laramie keep around, obviously, for 2025, and I think you can move Fisher into right tackle and go from there. But good to see you, Sarah. Good to hear from you. Love the support you provide on X or Twitter, as I call it. Arthur, man, long time no chat. Good to see you, bud. What's up, Cap? Just got in here. I don't know if you mentioned it, but who do you think starts for Anderson? Autry moves out to end, or Barnett starts? I think it's a little bit of both. We've seen Autry work both edge and interior. We've seen him have more success from the interior than the edge. Detroit's going to be without Taylor Decker. They're starting left tackle. Panay Sewell's on the right side. So I think it's just going to kind of be matchup based, down and distance based. You're going to see Barnett probably at right. No, he plays left end. Anderson plays left end. So it'll be going against Sewell. You're going to see Barnett more often in the base formations with Fatukasi and Settle on the interior. And then whether they're going to run that boss front, the bigs on the same side, boss, clever, right? Whether you see that boss front where they have three players left of the center with the linebacker and the A-gap, and then the other defensive end, wide nine. Go to capandtrade.football. I got a post on this whole breakdown. And so I think you'll see Barnett, Autry, and Settle on one side of the formation. And then there will be times where they're not running the boss front, but if it's just a standard four-man front, I think you're going to see Autry on the interior with either Settle or Fadakasi, and then Barnett on the edge. But I do think if Dylan Horton is feeling better, it apparently had an illness, but if he's feeling better, I think you'll see him on the edge, kind of sparing the two players. So I think you'll see Autry and Barnett kind of rotating between the edge, and Barnett come off the field, and Autry maybe goes on to the edge, and then Horton is your just relief pitcher per se, right? He's a power guy. Doesn't have much pass rush moves, but he can bully and get some pressure and get some push into the pocket to put some pressure on the quarterback. So it's just going to kind of be just a juggling act. I think it's going to be matchup based. Who's got the hot hand? Who's doing well where? Down and distance. So you're just going to kind of see just a mix and match of Barnett, Autry on the edge. Maybe Barnett comes on the interior, and then Horton mixing in a little bit. So just a little bit of everything. So dead cap goes to the team they're trading to. No, dead cap stays with the Texans. All future payments, dead caps is basically like a sunk cost. So money already paid to the player. So in the case of Howard, Mason, Tunsil, it's all the prorated money that the team is bonus money the team's already paid. So dead money stays with Houston. New money goes to the other team. Sewell will likely move to left tackle for this game. You really think so? That's interesting. I hadn't studied the Lions enough to say if that's the case or not. So let me get into the back end here. Y'all can't look. Don't look. Can't see back here. You're not allowed to see back there. Roster depth charts. So you think Penei Sewell moves to right tackle? I don't know. I mean, I get the thought process, but I will say that if you follow Duke Mayweather on social media, he says that moving a right tackle to left tackle or left tackle or right tackle is like trying to wipe your ass with the opposite hand. So if your right hand is trying to wipe your ass with your left hand. Okay. I mean, you got another message here. One of our good friends is what happens when Deckers get. Okay. Hey, I'll take your word for it, Sam, because I haven't looked and studied enough to see if that's what they do. So maybe they put Dan Skipper at right tackle and move Penei Sewell to left tackle. I don't get the reasoning for that. And let me explain. So, 10 years ago, left tackle, blindside, biggest paid guy, right tackle, not important. Bull crap, no longer applicable. So to me, if your right tackle excels at playing right tackle, then you leave him at right tackle. Now, Penei Sewell is a badass. He's one of the best offensive tackles in the game. Maybe he can slide over to left tackle and he can be just as successful as he could at right tackle. But to me, you just leave him at right tackle and put your other guy over there and put a tight end over there to chip. Maybe put your linebacker and pistol on the left side, chip, whatever. But that doesn't make sense to me. And I could be completely wrong. Very much so. Happens all the time. So we'll see. That'll be a good one to watch, Sam. I appreciate the feedback on that, man. That's you know who we need to ask is Jeff Ridson. And it's probably too late because he's older than me and he's probably asleep, so I can't text him. He'll be mad at me if I text him at this time. But Jeff Ritson covers the Lions for USA Today. So I'll text him tomorrow. We'll see. Be interesting to see. Brandon, welcome in, buddy. Halfway through the season is probably too early for incentive watch, but are there any likely to be earned, not likely to be earned, you have your eye on? Well, Brandon, that's a good question. I have not started looking. Majority, about 90% of the veteran contracts for the Houston Texans have incentives. Nick Caserio has decided to make my life a living HELL. So, I haven't started looking. I probably will start looking around week 15. Majority of Houston's incentives are built around playing time. Some of the receivers are receptions. Mixon's got some. And then a lot of the defensive players, whether it's interceptions or sacks. So definitely we'll put out a post once we get probably past the bye around 14, 15 to see how those incentives are looking. But props to you for dropping the LTBE, NLTBE, and knowing what they are. So handshake to you, bud. That's awesome. I wish more people knew about those and what they meant and how they work. So just so everybody knows, LTBE, we'll throw Brandon's quote. So LTBE means likely to be earned. NLTBE means not likely to be earned. So how is that determined? Quick salary cap 101. Likely to be earned, not likely to be earned. So it's based on the previous season performance. So if a player has three incentive levels, let's say $500,000, $1 million, and $1.5 million for 10 sacks, 12 sacks, 14 sacks. If the player, 10, 12, 14, so if the player had 13 sacks in 2023, then the $1 million would count towards the cap this year, right? Because they achieved that much in the previous year. So $500,000 and the $1 million level would count towards the cap this year. Now, if the player this year achieves 14 sacks, which would achieve the $1.5 million, the player would be paid the $1.5 million, and the team would incur a $500,000 negative adjustment for next year because he exceeded the likely to be earned portion of the incentive. Now, flip side, if the player only achieved 10 sacks, which is the 500,000 barrier, under the 1 million or 1.0, the 1 million barrier, the team would receive a $500,000 credit on that cap the following year as part of the annual adjustment. Arthur, I know this is old, but can you explain why nobody knows why the Jimmy Ward extension happened. I can't explain it. I don't even want to try to explain it. It just makes no sense to me why you would extend him. I mean, I get it. Let me go to history. I get it because you front him some cash and you kind of reward him for his whatever, being a good soldier. But it made no sense to me. Yes, it's cheap next year. I get that. It's cheap. It's only $3.25 million in cash next year. It's only $5.875 in cap next year. I get it. It's cheap. I get it. But it makes no sense. Why Would you not let him go to free agency where he's probably not even going to earn that much money? And if you really want to resign him, you resign him at $1.5 or $2 million or whatever. There's no way that Jimmy Ward is signing a contract worth more than $3.25 million in the offseason next year. No way. Let's look at safety. You're telling me, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 10, 15, 20, 22, 25. You're telling me he's going to make more than these guys? Taylor Rapp, Jordan Fuller, Reed Blankenship, Julian Blackmon, who's actually a decent safety at $3.7 million? No. It makes no sense to me. So, it makes no sense to me. Why not just let him become a free agent, re-sign him next year? If you really want him back, you re-sign him back for probably 80% of what you already signed him for. I did not get that. I felt like it was more of a reward type situation for being a good soldier, for being a good leader, captain, whatever. Playing 50% of the season, it makes no sense to me. So, Arthur, to answer your question, no, I don't know. It made no sense to me. It made no sense to me when it happened. I would not have done it. It just... I'm with you, bud. Sarah, right after Jimmy Ward extension, did they sign someone or trade someone after? So now I've got to go to my spreadsheet, my dork sheet. Let me see here. Let's see here. This is my spreadsheet, so y'all probably don't need to be looking at this. When was Ward extended? So it was extended in August 17th before the season started. Now, they did save some cap dollars as part of that extension. It was very minimal. It was like $600,000, so that shouldn't have been the big deal. And then they went into the 53-man cut down. So, Sarah, it makes sense from the point where they didn't really, I mean, it was right in the shuffle of the 53-man roster cutdowns. So it's really hard to say if they were doing it to sign somebody. I don't recall. Yeah, I certainly don't recall. Let me look at one more thing here. Don't tell Jason that I'm showing y'all this. This is the back end of over the cap. So his cap number was 7.79 before the extension, and it went down to. So they saved 1.3 million. So they saved 1.3 million. Added some cash. No, they didn't really. I mean, it just seems like it's more of a reward for the player for what they did. I don't know, but they saved a little bit of cash, a little bit of cap. Didn't really sign. I mean, it was right in the flux of the 53-man roster shuffle, so it's really hard to say if it was assigned to one person or whatever. So I was confused when it happened. There was some cat. No, there was no loophole. No loophole. It was just craziness. And Sarah, I see your other question. We'll get to that in a second, Miss Sarah. Sam says, "Do you think there's a chance Diggs comes back on a cheaper deal since he tore his ACL, or would the team be still give him a big contract?" Big contract, no. So this was fascinating to me, and if you go to capandtrade.football, I think it's probably already behind the paywall at this point. But I did write about this whole situation with Diggs and what his contract would be before and after his restructure. He took an extra $4 million this year to bet on himself. The team did it to motivate him, and now he's injured. So is he going to be able to get a big contract after this injury or not? He's turning 32 in November. Man, with the advent of 7-on-7 football, the success rate that we're seeing with, that we're seeing with wide receivers coming out of the college and how quickly they're successful and how quickly they're adapting in the game. And you see all the receivers that were traded for pennies on the dollar this year at the trade deadline. Put all those things together, I just don't see how Diggs can get a big contract next offseason. So, to answer your question, I truly do think prior to the injury, when they redid Diggs' contract, it was a 1 year. We need you to give you everything you got, and you'll go find out more money elsewhere on the market. I think that was the case. Now he's injured. Sam, I think you're right on it. I think there is a chance that they could re-sign Diggs at 60% of his potential market value, get him back on a 1 year deal for, I don't know. Let me see here. Let me get out of this back end before Jason yells at me. Wide receiver. So, I mean, if you could get him back in this, get him back in this $8 to $10 million for 1 year, yeah, I'd be all for that. Absolutely. And, if you could get him in that $8 to $10 million and add some incentives in there for, another 2 or 4 to get up to 12, 14, $15 million a year, I would be all for that. It needs to be done before the vesting, the void date, which is February 18th-ish, mid-February. They need to get it done before all that prorated money hits forward, right? But I'm with you, man. I think there's an opportunity for this team to bring him back at a lower cost and not have to force their hand in the draft. Didn't we go over the cap and accent small now? Would that be it? No. Can't go over the cap. Now, I say that. There was a rumor that they went over the cap last year. They didn't. With the whole Fairbairn. I wrote up that on capandtrade.football as well. So, you can't go over the cap. You just can't. And if somebody says, well, what happens if they go over? They can't. And I'll explain why. Let's just say for the sake of this exercise, a team has $1 million in cap space left. And you sign a new contract that has a cap figure of $1.5 million, right? Which would push you over the cap. This is what the league council, the management council is going to do. They're going to disallow that contract. They're going to tell you, we cannot process this because it will put you over the cap. You need to either restructure and redo this contract to where it fits, or you need to adjust other contracts before you submit this one. So you can't go over the cap. The league's just not going to process the contract to get over the cap. So the league is just going to stop it out right then and there, like disallowed. You cannot have this contract run through until you make other adjustments. And as usual, Sarah's right on it. Yep. On all of that. How many minutes are we in this thing? An hour? Holy shit. An hour, 10 minutes already? This was supposed to be a short one. Well, I appreciate everybody coming through. I've kind of hit I was just talking to Landry earlier today. He was just checking to see how I was doing, and I was checking to see how he was doing. And I told him, man, I've hit a content creation lull. Like, I haven't wanted to write anything, haven't wanted to create anything, and it's frustrating. Frustrating as all get out. It makes me feel disappointed. So it was good to get on here tonight. I know it's just a small group, and I appreciate all y'all. I really do. Y'all are my favorites. I do love interacting with y'all. I love the Q&A. This is my favorite stuff. I love the questions. I love y'all think of things that I don't think of, and it spurs some really good thoughts. So it was a lot of fun to do this tonight. Hadn't done this in a while. I need to do it more often. So maybe we will. Life, man. Life gets in the way. I will tell you that much. Life gets in the way, especially with the kids and how often they just suck up. They're vampires. They're content creator vampires is what they do. So would love to see you on with Cody and Lane. Man, those two are just knocking it out of the park. I'm not going to force myself onto their show or anything like that. Landry and Cody are just doing phenomenal work. And I'm so proud of them. I really am. Especially Cody. I mean, I'm proud of Landry too. Don't get me wrong. It's not like children where I love one more than the other. But those two are just taking the path that is not usual, right? Cody left ESPN 97.9, started HOU football. I mean, I was sitting right next to him at it's got a bowling alley inside of it. I can't remember the name of the place. We're having the media party. Now sit next to him, and we were going over domain names because I had changed over to capandtrade.football. And when I was going over to domain names with Cody, we were having a beer, and I was literally just talking. It's like, what about this? What about this? And Houston.football was like $2,500, and he couldn't afford it at the time. And then we looked it up, and we saw HOUfootball.com is free. I'm like, man, that's it. So Cody snapped on it, and man, he just works his freaking tail off. And he's got such good insight. He knows every time I chat with him, and I sit right on game days, on Sundays, Mondays, Thursdays, whatever. On game day, I sit right next to Cody, and then Landry sits right next to Cody. So it's me, Cody, Landry. And it is just such good conversation with those two. They are immersed in this team. If there's anybody that I would trust with thoughts on this team, it's going to be Cody and Landry. On top of that, they're just good dudes. They really are. They're just good dudes. I mean, like I said, Landry sent me a message today, say, hey, how you living? I mean, just checking on me. He's a good dude. Cody, I love him to death. I always have an affection for Cody because when I first attended my first training camp, when I think it was 18. I think it was 2018 when I first attended my first training camp. I walked in, didn't know anybody. And the first person to say, "Hey, how are you?" Shook my hand, told him who I was. And he said, I remember this. This will be ingrained with my mind. He said, "You're just as important to the Houston media landscape as anybody else here." And that was Cody Stutes. I will always forever remember what he told me that day. He didn't have to say that to me. He could have just walked away. He could have blown me off. But no, he shook my hand, said, "Man, you're just as important as I am as anybody else here." And that really hit hard. And I knew it, man, because everybody, I'm not trying to dismiss anybody else on the Houston beat. 90% of those folks are just phenomenal. DJ BNMA, super cool dude. I mean, he is laid back. And don't let DJ get away from you. That dude is smart as all get out. He knows this game inside and out. And he's a freaking track star. John Alexander, love that dude. He is super genuine. I love my conversations with John. Paul Gallant, he is Paul, but he's genuine. He's authentic. He knows who he is, and I appreciate that for Paul. And then Adam Wexler sits right by us as well. Wex is super smart, thinks of things that I never think of. Sean, who I talk to quite a bit. Seth, who I talk to quite a bit. They're just genuinely good dudes. And all these people across the beat, man, I love them all. And so make sure support them as best you can. That's all I can say. Support them as best you can. I mean, and I'm sorry for going that tangent. Back to Arthur, where you're saying is I love you all. Them two they don't need me, man. They SNL, they don't need me at all. They can kick butt on their own, and I'm so proud of them. And I love listening to it. I listen to SNL with Stutes and Landry every morning. May not be live when I listen to it. I may have to catch a recording of it, but what they're doing, man, it is phenomenal. Well, Sarah, I appreciate the support. I know you're huge on X with the support, and I can't thank you enough. I appreciate popping in here and giving your feedback. You're super smart, and I like I said, I appreciate all the feedback. I appreciate the Q&A. I love the interaction with folks, man. Just I can't respond to everybody on X with life and everything in between, but I will do my best that I can. And send me a message, send me a DM. My DMs are open. So if you got a question and I don't answer it on Twitter, I have my notifications set up a weird way where like you have to be following me for me to see your notification, or maybe I have to be I don't know. Anyhow, if I don't answer, send me a DM. If I don't answer on DM, it's because I don't want to answer. But sometimes, whatever. You started the Texans YouTube live videos. I love Arthur, you're so sweet. I did. I don't want to take credit for what we did. If Arthur remembers, we started the Twitter Spaces, and it was brutal, because we did them in 2021. I remember my first one was like February 2021. I think Aaron Reese was my first guest. Yeah, when he was the Athletic. I think I have the recording still. That was in the David Coley era. That was brutal. Oh, I remember the conversations like, are we going to draft a quarterback? Who are we going to do? And we didn't have a first or second rounder. Oh, that was fun times. But yeah, we started with Twitter Spaces. They turned into YouTube live videos. Me and Landry are doing them together. And then Landry took it and ran with his own because he has the time and the ability to do these. I wish I had more time to do these. I just don't. Like I always say, when I say on X or wherever, or when I say, but life happens, this is what I mean. I just sometimes don't have time. But yeah, he took them and ran with them. But Arthur, you're right on it, man. Man, we were one of the OGs. It was so much fun. Exploring all those new technology options, and we did a lot with it. I'll mention having you on next time they go live. Throw a pebble at them, man. Throw a pebble at them, Sarah, for me. Good stuff. I will try to watch you next. I appreciate it, Tony. I don't know when the next one will be. I want to get through the holiday season, and where I really excel is in the off season, as a lot of you know. So I'm hoping that I can get back to a more normalized schedule with this once we get past the regular season. I've been stewing on it for like 3 weeks now that I want to get back to like the weekly show like we used to do. I enjoy the impromptu Q&A like tonight, but I really want to be able to do more formalized Q&A and have it more scheduled out, do things like that. But if you know me, the off season is where I just thrive and love. I love contract projections. I love looking at roster building and how they can, construct the roster, how the team can manage the cap and manage their cash and how all that works out. And so maybe once we get past playoffs and however far this team goes, February, March, we can do a little more normalized schedule. In between then and that, I don't know. I'll try to give you more heads up. Yeah, I know you're following, Sarah. I appreciate it. You're always there. You're one of the first ones to like things, and I love it. Yeah, and I was happy when we moved to YouTube. Got to dark. Man, Arthur is not lying. We got through some dark times. I remember I started doing them in the garage here in the house because I was worried about keeping the kids awake, and we would start at 8 o'clock. I had bought I remember I bought some equipment from Cody. I bought the microphone that I'm still talking on. I bought from Cody way back when. Was that 3.5 years ago? And I bought an audio interface. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I bought all the cables and everything. And I would sit in the garage because I was trying to keep didn't want to bother the kids. And it certainly didn't want to bother Henry. Those who don't know, Henry he's my son. He's 8. He's autistic, non-speaking. So it's tough. I can't just do these and shut the door. He'll. If you go watch, there's on my channel a draft reaction video where I said wow like 18 times in a row. Henry made an appearance on that one. So suffice to say, when we started those, I was trying to keep away because Henry's unpredictable. So, and then it turned into the YouTube videos. I have to do them late after he goes to sleep. But Arthur's right, man. There was some dark conversations. I remember I would get different media on every week, and we would talk about what this team could draft with no first round, no second round pick, a upside down cap situation, and Nick didn't do exactly what I thought he should or would have done. I'm not saying what he did was wrong, but it's not the path that I was taking. But that was some dark time. Arthur's right on it, man. Those were I still remember those times where I was having Aaron Reese and Sean and Clint and Seth, and we were just rotating. And then me and Lander started doing them every week, and that was fun time. So, great fellow Sarah's, Optimistic's my dude. So it's 12:20 a.m. and I've got to work in about 6 hours. So I probably need to close this down. Finish my last beer. Yeah, so things to watch out for tomorrow before we close this down is 3 p.m. is the deadline. So 3 p.m. is the deadline tomorrow for this team to activate Nico Collins, Jerry Hughes, Jeff Okuda. There's one roster spot open. So they can already activate one player and not have to do anything. But if they want to activate 2 or 3 players, they're going to have to pull some players off the roster. So tomorrow, mid-afternoon, keep an eye on X. You'll see the post from make sure you're following Will Kunkel. He's kind of got the inside with the medical folks. Inactives won't be till 5:30 in the evening, but any roster moves had to be done by 3. So keep an eye on that. That would be the big moves for tomorrow. I'm not entirely sure. Haven't been privy to what's going to happen. Hopefully Nico Collins is activated, but I'm like 50-50. I feel like it could happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if Nico is not activated. Really, really hope he's activated. So keep an eye on social media from there. Sam says, miss the cap and trade show. I do too. Maybe in the off season we'll get back going. Optimistic, appreciate it. Nico better get that spot. Yeah, man, I'm with you. So I think we will call that a night. Make sure the YouTube channel and the capandtrade.football newsletter does well. Got a lot of subscribers there, but I really need subscribers here on the YouTube channel. So make sure you are liking, commenting, and subscribing. Okay. Need more subscribers here to make this channel better so that I can do better for you. So with that, as we always say, we will call it a night. Everybody be safe, and we'll chat with you soon. Peace.